the power of this software to actually to chop a loop and to take each individual part of the loop and use it as a different distinct sound source within the track was like kind of quite surprising. So I sort of used this as a bit of a learning tool for Geist, and because we had an idea for a track based on 4 or 5 different dub plates that we had knocking around from other things we've been working on, and essentially I always use Recycle to chop my loops up. So we took it into Recycle first of all to take each of the individual parts, and then we just literally went through and loaded each one of those into Geist on a separate pad and started learning how to use Geist to create the tracks you see here. So originally when we started doing this, I did use the Geist pattern sequencer to do the first draft of it, and having got the basic groove, wanting variations all the way through, and because I'm too impatient to use a step sequencer to program an entire track, and I'm really used to doing it in Logic. So I started with a groove in Geist, then exported it as a MIDI file into Logic, and then reprogrammed the rest of it through Logic. And the drums then came about through a variation of some parts of it were programmed in Geist, some parts of it I mapped Geist to the V drums, the Roland V drums, and actually played them live. And the whole thing just kind of slowly slotted together from there. And this whole drum part ended up being created in Geist, with the exception of one of the vocal parts, which I created on Ableton on a separate system, which is synced via MIDI over Ethernet. That's altogether was about 4 different samples, some of which we created and recorded here and are from previous vocal sessions, and some of which are from previous drum sessions that I've done in other studios. And what we tend to do is just literally start by jamming a few different grooves, and some of the time I'll take some of those grooves across into something like Track to Scratch Pro if I haven't got them on vinyl, and just literally use the vinyl to push them backwards and forwards, and just to get the flow of the rhythm. And sometimes the scratches will end up as individual samples themselves as well. And I just really love the way within Geist we could take, I would end up chopping probably one 4-bar loop into maybe sometimes 76 to 80 separate parts, and then could literally go through going, okay, that's a kick, it would go into a kick slot in Geist, okay, that's a snare, go into a snare slot in Geist. And they could take each one as a separate channel and start to process those within Geist, and then output them on separate channels. Again, the way I use it in Logic is Geist is used in multi-output mode. So I'll have the Geist multi-output item here, and then over here I think is separate outputs from Geist, each going to different buses, and then I will run the actual audio inputs in Logic on, actually audio channels rather, in Logic on input, and start to build up processing, start to build up the mix here. So these are actually quite heavily, the kick drum there is quite heavily processed. Parts running as I would have programmed them on input coming out of Geist on multi-channel. But it just gives us quite a nice way of being really hands-on and actually playing the samples. So some of the hat parts and some of the original, probably the original kick and drum part, I might have been able to play using a V drum kit, just literally sitting down and actually playing the sample as if it was a drum kit, but they've originally come off vinyl or from old sessions that we've done. And some of the other parts I might be able to trigger from Ableton and just keep those on input, and then drag and drop little loop bits back into Geist. Other bits that we did, I haven't done it on this track within Geist, but we used to do it within Guru, and I'm sure we'll do it with Geist as well, is to take parts of that, take a little bit, record it in maybe just a bar, drop it onto Tractor, and just do some scratches with it. So you just get some nice pullbacks and some nice flows in it. We can just grab those. They go straight back into Geist. Once you kind of get a head around how it's working, it's just the internal effects on it and the sound of it are great. Really, really good. And up until now, stuff like that I would have done exclusively on an Akai. I've got two S3000s just for the sound of them. And for the first time ever, I just kind of got into using samples and chopping up samples and porting them over into that, and it sounds great.